Welcome back, Twisters. Nick here, and today I'm going to continue my 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs preview videos, and we're going to talk about the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we're going to look at the season series between these two teams, their various records throughout the season, their team stats, the key storylines to follow, and then I'll make my prediction, but I want to know your predictions down in those comments below. Disagree? I ask that you do so respectfully, and let's rock and roll, ladies and gentlemen. So on the season, the Panthers had the upper hand here. They were 5-2-1 against Tampa and outscored them 31-24. And Tampa got an overtime win, and so they were overall 3-5-0 against Florida. On the season, Florida finished 37-14-5 for 79 points. An excellent season for them, second year under Joel Quenneville. In their last 10, they were 8-2-0. The Penguins had the same mark in their last 10, but nobody else did any better than them. And at home, the Panthers were 25-3, and away from home, they were 17-9-2, so a pretty good road record. Tampa on the season, 36-17-3, 75 points. In their last 10, they were a very respectable 6-3-1. At home, they were 21-7-0, and away, they were a little more pedestrian at 15-10-3. Let's look at the team statistics between these two clubs, and man, it's interesting to see a couple of these versus where they were last year. So, points percentage, Florida finished 4th in the NHL, or at least before these final games wrap up for other teams. Tampa finished 9th. Goals for average, so how many goals they were scoring per game. Florida was tied for 3rd in the NHL at 3.36. Tampa was 9th at 3.21. Goals against, this is where we've seen some progress for the Cats. So Tampa, first of all, at 2.59 goals against, tied for 6th in the league. Florida, not far behind at 2.70. That was 9th best. Power play percentage. Florida definitely felt the loss of Hoffman and Dodonov. So 20.5% was 15th. Tampa was 22.4. That was 8th. And then I like to couple that with penalties drawn per game, because if you draw more penalties, you get more man advantage opportunities. So the Cats, they actually were tied for the most in terms of penalties drawn per game at 4.36. Tampa was not far behind, 4th in the NHL at 4.07. Penalty kill percentage, Florida 79.8%, that was 17th. Tampa, very good, 84.2%, that was 4th. And then I couple that with your penalty minutes per game. So this is interesting. Both of these teams are the most penalized teams in the NHL. So Tampa is dead last at 10 minutes and 39 seconds, and Florida at 10 minutes and 8 seconds. So we're going to see probably a lot of special teams here, but according to the numbers, Tampa seems to have a slight advantage because their power play and penalty kill are certainly a little bit better. Shot disparity. So I take your shots for per game and I subtract your shots against per game. So Florida averages 4.9 shots more per game than they surrender. They actually take the most shots in the NHL. And Tampa averages 1.9 shots more per game. And they're also tied for the 7th fewest shots surrendered. And then lastly, face-offs. This is pretty negligible. So Florida, 15th in the NHL at 50.2%. And Tampa at 50.1%, which is 16th. Our key storylines, so I've got 5 of them here. First of all, no surprise, it's the battle for Florida. So to my understanding, this is the first postseason matchup between a professional team based in Tampa versus one in Miami. So I'm not counting the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat because Orlando's not Tampa, even though it's fairly close, but I would imagine some Tampa people probably cheer for the Heat for basketball. So if you look at Champa Bay against Miami when it comes to baseball, hockey, and football. So you got the Lightning, the Rays, and the Buccaneers. They have 4 championships between the 3 of them. The Rays, of course, have knocked on the door a couple of times, but have never actually won a title. And then between the Panthers, the Miami Marlins, and the Miami Dolphins, that is also 4 championships. So something's kind of got to give here. And lastly, I do want to stress that the Panthers have not won a playoff series, since 1996. So it's been 25 years. Maybe it's high time that they actually moved on for a change. Okay, the next storyline I want to emphasize, the health of Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, and Victor Hedman as well. So Hedman I wanted to highlight here because it's already confirmed that he's going to have off-season surgery. So he's not 100%. A lot of these players likely are not, but for a big name like that, Victor Hedman won the Conn Smythe last postseason, and deservedly so. He was magnificent. He's a perennial Norris Trophy finalist, if not winning the trophy. So that's at least some sort of factor to consider when you're going up against one of the best offenses in the NHL. Even Ryan McDonough's a little banged up as well. And then Tampa's record without Stamkos and Kucherov since April 8th. I'm going to highlight that. It is 9-6-1. So Stamkos missed some time before that as well, but it's been primarily since April 8th, the last 5 weeks or so. And so the team 9-6-1, that's respectable, absolutely, but it's not lights out by any means. And against Florida in that stretch since April 8th, including the last 2 games of the season, they were 1-3-0. They got an overtime win, I believe, against Tampa, and they were outscored 16-7 in those 4 games. So they got lit up. In the last 2 games, they lost by a combined score of 9-1. So not looking good there. And then Kucherov and Stamkos, we don't even know if they're expected to play, honestly. So a lot is looming for a couple of the top performers for the Lightning. Of course, they have a lot of great players who were still part of the championship roster. Of course, Vasilevsky highlights that, Braden Point too. But nonetheless, they certainly didn't have the season that they could have if the whole band was back together, if you know what I mean. The next point, or my next storyline, can Chris Driedger carry the load? I'm assuming the Panthers are going to start him because he has been absolutely magnificent. He's only started 34 games the past 2 seasons, but his numbers are lights out. Let's just look at this year. 23 starts, a 2.07 goals against. This is the Florida Panthers we're talking about. A 927 save and 3 shutouts. And then that gets even better. In his last 11 games, 10 of which I think he completed all the way through, he's given up just 18 goals in those last 11 games. His save is 935, so excellent numbers there. Bobrovsky, his last 11 games, by contrast, has surrendered 29 goals and has a save of 911, which is still, it's pedestrian, if that. So I think Driedger is going to get the start here. I think he's got just enough work under his belt, and of course, he's played very well against the Lightning this season. My next storyline, how hungry are the Bolts since 2020? Are they going to have that sort of championship hangover? I bring this up because I looked at the performance of the last several Stanley Cup champions. So, for example, St. Louis won the Cup in 2019. They were bounced in the first round this past season. Washington, the season after they won the Cup in 2018, they were bounced in the first round. Pittsburgh, in 2018, they were bounced in the second round in 6 games to Washington. However, they did repeat in 2017, so they've had the most success here. 2016, Chicago bounced in the first round, and the LA Kings, who won the Cup in 2014, didn't even make the playoffs in 2015. So is that trend going to continue here, especially for a club that is as banged up as Tampa is? And then the last storyline I wanted to highlight before I actually get into my prediction is that the Panthers are so much more than just Barkov and Huberdeau. I already talked about Driedger, of course, but man, Bill Zito did an unbelievable job in his time as GM so far, including the trade deadline. So let's look at, first of all, Sam Bennett, who came over during the deadline. 6 goals, 9 assists, so 15 points, and a plus 12 rating in just 10 games. So this guy has been on fire with Florida so far. And then you look at some of these names, guys who kind of flew in under the radar. Again, this team was very strong last season offensively, or for a couple of years, because you had Hoffman and Dodonov as part of that makeup. But you look at Mackenzie Weegar on defense, 36 points in 54 games, right? Have some of you out here even heard of Mackenzie Weegar? Carter Verhaeghe, who won the Cup with Tampa last year, was kind of barely making the roster for the playoffs, had 36 points in 43 games this year. This guy was absurd. I think those 2 players right there, if you were to look at the 10 best seasons nobody is talking about, these 2 guys would easily be in that list. They have been magnificent. Patrick Hornqvist was a very good acquisition, 32 points in 44 games. Anthony Duclair, who had an excellent season last year in Ottawa, 32 points in 43 games for him. Alex Wennberg had a nice bounce-back season now that he moved over from the Blue Jackets, 17 goals, 29 points in 56 games. And then I talked about Bennett just now. So let's go into my predictions here. So looking at this, Florida does have the advantage on paper, having won 5 of those 8 games, having dominated those last 2 at the end of the season by a score of 9-1. However, of course, Tampa is the defending champions, and you still, even if you are missing, Kucherov, you still could have Stamkos. You still have Victor Hedman. You still have Andrei Vasilevsky, you still have Braden Point, and some of those guys who were key to the Lightning's deep run last year, guys like looking at Andre Palat and looking at Eric Chernak and looking at, I would say, Barclay Goodrow and, of course, Patrick Maroon as well. But again, are all those guys going to be taking the ice? So here's what I think about this. It's going to be a great goaltending matchup. Even if it's 5-4 every game, it's still going to be an exciting matchup to see Vasilevsky and a guy who, if he played, if we had an 82-game season, maybe a guy like Chris Driedger would have gotten some Vezina votes as well. So with this one, I am going to say Florida Panthers, for the first time in 25 seasons, win a series, but I do think Tampa is going to fight as hard as, actually, they'll fight harder than pretty much anybody not named Pittsburgh who's defending a championship in recent years. So I think this goes a full 7 games. I think Tampa really pushes Florida, and if the Panthers make it deep into the playoffs, this could be the most challenging series that they face. After that, if they survive Tampa, I think they have a good chance at maybe making it to the finals, honestly. I've watched this team more than most other clubs this year, and I think that they have some pretty strong balance, and man, I just can't wait to watch this series. It's going to be so much fun. But of course, I want to know your thoughts on this series down in the comments. Make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe, and that way you stay in the loop for when I'm uploading videos as they pertain to the playoffs. So stick around for more playoff coverage here. And down in the description, you can also see my links to social media, and you can see our merch store as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I'm Nick, and I'll catch you Twisters later. Ciao.